Concerned neighbor will set the apartment on fire, posted by famous chip 9386. Hello, I'm 26 female and my neighbor is 65 female. Recently, I got a new neighbor. We live in a duplex and she's in the other unit that shares a roof and a wall with me. The first night she moved in, I heard her fire alarm go off and I went outside to see her back door open and smoke coming out of it. I went over and her oven had started smoking, but she unplugged it before it caught anything on fire. She seemed off, but I thought it was just because of the oven smoking. She told me that she was homeless after a hurricane that hit us a few years ago and her temporary housing had caught on fire because of a dishwasher malfunction, and so she was extra spooked. I thought nothing of it and ended the conversation saying goodnight before I returned to bed. Well, she starts banging on my door around 1 a.m. because she can't find her phone. I think nothing of it because it probably got tossed somewhere as the oven started smoking, and as a neighbor, I was happy to help. I gave her my number just in case she needs anything. The next day, she texts me asking for a ride and I don't have a car, so I decline. Then she asked me some questions about the apartment, which I'm happy to answer since I've lived here for over a year now. She asked me to share my Wi-Fi and claims that she would pay for half, but I decline because that can be super dangerous, but I make up an excuse. All the red flags are up now. I drop hints multiple times that I'm busy, but she will not stop texting me for about an hour. After she sends me like 10 texts in a row, I straight up tell her that I'm busy and she apologizes. The next day, our power goes out, so I reach out. Apparently, hers went out first and she contacted maintenance, but they won't fix it for a few more weeks. Eventually, mine comes back on 30 minutes later, but hers does not. A few hours later in the middle of the night, I hear her fire alarm beeping again, so I text to make sure she's okay. She calls me and tells me the fire alarm was going off for no reason, and then trauma dumps on me. She tells me that her ex-husband works for our local police and that he's harmful and out to get her. She told me that people purposefully set her housing on fire on July 4th with fireworks to kill her pets and suggested that her ex was behind it. I looked up the house fires in our area and even our whole state on or near July 4th, and no results came up. She told me that the entire police department was corrupt, which I can believe, but they were also out to get her. She told me that her children think that she's crazy and have been manipulated by her ex. She told me that she's considered offing but won't do it because of her faith. I told her on the phone that I'm setting boundaries, that she isn't allowed to contact me unless there's an emergency, and that she cannot continue to trauma dump on me. She goes on a rant about how she wasn't trauma dumping, wasn't on drugs, which I never asserted, and wasn't over there setting fires, which I also never asserted, before talking about how that she would never off herself once more, and then saying goodnight and hanging up. That night, I contact my landlord about everything, and they informed me about the maintenance issues over at her apartment, explaining why the fire alarm went off the first time, which I already knew, and the next morning, they told me that they were going to ask her to not contact her neighbors at night. The maintenance manager called me about my electric being out, and I mentioned that mine came back, but hers did not. The maintenance manager told me that my issue was unrelated to hers, and they were about to call her. About 30 minutes later, I hear her yelling and then screaming on the phone at whom I presume was the maintenance manager. I heard her exclaim that she never did anything wrong and she was getting her life back together, followed by some door slams. At this point, I was really worried for my safety, but she didn't knock on my door or anything and hasn't attempted to contact me since. I'm more so worried about her setting our building on fire, given her history. I don't know if there were 2 fires or if there was 1, but I'm just very, very concerned. Our walls are made out of concrete, so I'm less worried about the walls catching fire and more worried about the roof and the ceiling. I have a cat and I live here alone. I'm afraid to leave the house in case he's trapped here if she sets the apartment on fire. I'm putting together a bag of essentials and my most sentimental items. Going through all of them has been really emotional. I have places that I can probably stay at if it all falls apart, but I'm just still terrified nonetheless. I'm a grad student on grad student pay. I have renter's insurance, but I'm still worried about recovering financially, let alone emotionally, if she burns my apartment down. I'm afraid I'll have to delay graduating if this happens. It's already taken an emotional toll on me, and I cannot focus on schoolwork. I don't know what else to do beyond what I've done so far. Any advice would be appreciated. Do you agree with this comment? OP replies, so call Adult Protective Services so they can do a wellness check. Smart on you for setting boundaries and continue to keep the landlord informed. OP says, I would, but I'm concerned that she would know that I did it and retaliate against me. She hasn't made a threat against me yet, but I'm very fearful of her. I mean, hey, it could be another neighbor that actually reports her. She doesn't know it has to be you. Ooh, what do you think? First experience with the 100% authentic Karen, posted by Dirk Pita. I'm a 28-year-old male and I'm a customer service representative for a very reputable insurance company in the US. I have experience in this job in different companies ever since I finished high school. Now, as a disclaimer, I do not and would never work in underwriting. I'm just in charge of regular CSR stuff. I don't have a say on insurance claims, and that's an entirely different department. Also, I'm an outsourced employee. Most customers don't mind. Some occasionally ask where I'm from, and then there's the very rare butthole that asks for someone that speaks English as soon as they hear my accent. I don't care. I'm used to it. Generally speaking, American customers are very nice and patient, more than the ones in my country. So I never really understood where do all the retail and customer service horror stories from the internet came from. Today, I did. So, Karen calls. As soon as I answer, I hear a lot of background noise, and the first thing that I do after introducing myself is to ask for the policy number. I hear a man in the background yell, and between a lot of noise, what I realize is, in fact, the policy number, and I ask him to repeat it since I could not hear very well. Karen decides to take the lead and let me know that she is driving through the interstate while calling me and that she does not want me to waste her time. I'm like, okay, how can I help you? I kid you not when I tell you this woman started screeching to the point that I had no idea what she was saying. Yes, I am not a native English speaker, but it's never been a barrier for me. I could not, for the life of me, understand why this woman was so angry. Between the insane yelling, I can make up something about her policy being canceled and her being charged anyways. And seeing the direction that this call was going, I decided that my best move was to immediately contact a supervisor through chat to get some assistance. I inform Karen of this, and I ask her to give me just a few minutes while I check on my side of the screen with what is happening with her policy. Karen, however, decided that I was a genie and I was supposed to grant her wishes and solve the issue that she was having without even knowing what it was and without checking for possible solutions. She decided that I was not allowed to place her on a hold, but I've had my share of angry customers, and I know better than to let them take control of the call. So I explicitly tell her that if she wants my help, she will need to cooperate with me and to let me figure out what is going on. She reluctantly agrees, but says she will be counting when I specify the hold will not be longer than 5 minutes. First supervisor interaction, and I'm just like, I have no idea what this woman wants. She's yelling at me, very angry. What's happening here? So we start piecing together emails and notes and everything left and realize that she requested for the policy to be canceled and provided proof to have a backdate cancellation, and it was all processed smoothly. She even got a response telling her that she would get the refund that she expected, and now I was even more confused. My assumption was that maybe she was just angry because she hasn't been refunded yet, which is just bank time shenanigans and, well, nothing we can do about it. So I'm like, okay ma'am, don't worry, you will be getting your refund, it's just bank timing. And that's when she informs me, at least in a coherent way, the real issue. She was magically charged again last night. So I double check and triple check with my supervisor. There are literally no traces of this supposed charge that she got last night. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't really believe that she was lying about it, we had no proof of it. So I asked her to send us a copy of the bank statement so we can issue a refund right away. And she just loses it. Once again, She starts screeching about how she's driving to go into surgery, how she's going to sue the company, me personally, all the colorful insults that you can imagine, including my accent and country of origin. How we stole her money and she wants hers back. I insist that I just need some record of it to issue the refund. I genuinely try to reason with her, explaining to her that I can't just issue a refund for someone who calls asking for it when we're not showing it in our system, and that I genuinely want to help her. Apparently, she was so freaking angry, she was driving like a maniac and got pulled over by the police and was given a ticket. She asked for my name so she could send me the ticket, as she was not going to pay for it because we were the ones causing her distress. I kindly explained to her that she shouldn't be calling while driving, and that is not our responsibility. However, I gave her my name. Good luck with that, I'm on the other side of the world. Anyway, she said that's what hands-free is for, and I had to hold back laughing because it only then hit me how stupid this woman clearly was. The part that really got under my skin was not the insults and the yelling, the racism or whatever. It was just how insanely unreasonable this woman was. Her concern was completely valid, and I told her multiple times that she was right to be upset and right to call us to get things fixed. But she needed to cooperate with me, and she was just hell-bent on releasing all of her anger and frustration on me. She literally would scream insults at me and then stop and say, "What else can I call you so you can understand how angry I am?" The worst part is that in my employee handbook, I am 100% allowed and justified to hang up on a customer like this. Karen thought she had some sort of hold over me, but that was not the case. I could have ended the 2-hour-long call at any time that I wanted with all the verbal abuse that she was throwing at me, but I still wanted to help her because I did believe that if she was being charged, it was unfair and I had to fix it. I started to get suspicious when she consistently refused to send me proof of the charges, no matter how much that I reassured her that this would all be fixed as soon as she did. It came to a point where she started telling me that if she died in surgery and made her husband a widow, it would be my personal fault. Don't ask me why, but that made me snap. For the first time in the call, I told her to not speak to me like that and to not say stuff like that. She was so thrown aback from my reaction that she calmed down for 5 minutes, give or take. I actually had hope then that maybe we could end this on a good note, but to no avail. Karen still wanted me to trust her word that she was being charged $59 on a canceled policy and wanted the money back. I finally told her that if she was not willing to send proof to dispute the charges with the bank. She said that she shouldn't have to call her bank, and I told her, "You've told me many times that this is illegal and fraud. Given what you've told me yourself, I strongly encourage you to dispute the charges with your bank." I asked if there was anything else that I could do for them, and I ended the call while they were still insulting me. I changed my status to take a breather and realized that most of my coworkers were looking at me, extremely concerned. Apparently, the yelling could be heard through my headset. My supervisors, more than one, joined in to help, congratulated me for keeping my cool and keeping control of the call. I still feel guilty because I couldn't help her. I'm not saying this for pity points, I really do. I was just so willing to help her because I love my job. But she just wanted someone to be mad at. Screw you, Karen. This is A Customer Is Not Always Right, though, by Spirited Bee 6840. This is a pretty long story about my first job in retail. I have a lot of horror stories from that job, but this is one that sticks with me even 4 to 5 years later. A few years ago, after I had just started college, I got my first job working in the shoe department of a sporting goods store. My job was simple. assist customers with finding the shoes we want, keep the aisles neat and organized, and then occasionally order shoes for customers if they didn't have them in stock. One day, my department had a call from a customer asking if we had a shoe in stock. I checked, told them that we did, and then they asked if I could put the shoe on hold for them. Once again, I did, and then I kept it in the back until they arrived. When they did arrive, they told me the name and I went to retrieve the shoe for them. When they got the shoe, they claimed it was the wrong shoe. I was confused at first because I thought I'd gotten the one that they'd wanted, but decided that I may have made a mistake. Not making a big deal about it, I apologized and I asked for the product name again to search our inventory, only to realize I had gotten the same shoe I just handed to them. Now, I was really confused. The shoe they were asking for was the shoe that I just gave them, but they said it was wrong. So I decided to take them to the aisle that the shoe came from to see if they would like to look at the selection. The shoe that they had asked for, which was still the shoe I had given them, was actually on display. They saw the name to confirm it themselves, but still insisted it was wrong. Come to find out, the reason they said it was wrong is cause, supposedly, the shoe underwent some kind of design change, and now instead of being a pure black shoe, it was a black shoe with a small white line going around the bottom of the shoe. It was the same exact shoe, but they were confused because apparently this line was not there the last time they bought it. They explained that they were buying it for their son who worked on an oil rig and needed this type of work shoe for the job because they knew it was the one that he liked, but they were confused because of the new design of the shoe. They were an elderly couple, so I assumed they just thought it was a different shoe, and knowing their son liked it, they were concerned with getting him a different pair that he might not like as much. I reassured them it was the same shoe, despite its change in appearance, and I am sure their son would still be happy with it, to which they continued to argue it wasn't right. It now felt like I was trying to convince them that one small design change wouldn't change the way that the shoe worked. When that still didn't get through to them, I tried offering a different pair, to which they insisted they needed this shoe, but without the white line. At this point, I'm getting frustrated because it has been 30 minutes since I started trying to help these idiots. Eventually, my manager walked by and asked what was going on. After the customers explained the situation, she joined to try and help me. Eventually, she managed to convince them that it was the same shoe. I was a little annoyed that it took her 5 minutes to do something that I've been trying to do for the last 30 minutes, but I was happy that this exchange was finally over. Or so I thought. After convincing them, they decided they wanted me to order the shoes for them rather than just buy the pair that I'd already given them. Our store had a system that allowed you to order a pair of shoes online and have them sent directly to your house. So I started going through the process of ordering the shoes for them. If any of you have ever purchased something online before, which I assume is most of you, it was the same process. The system requires information like your home address, your email address, your zip code, phone number, and so on. I should mention, by the way, they had mentioned having ordered a pair of shoes from us before, and I'd been working here roughly around 2 years by this point, so I knew how our ordering system worked, and I know the way that we do it had never changed. So I started asking for their information. First of all, they claimed they don't have an email address. This was back in 2019, so it was incredibly baffling to me that anyone in the modern era didn't have an email address. But that's not where the frustration continued. As I had asked for each bit of information, they had to question me on why they needed it. Then, at one point, the old lady, who had been doing most of the talking during this whole exchange, interrupts me to claim that she never had to give us this information before and didn't understand why I needed it. I then explained to her that this is the way we've always ordered shoes for our customers, and if she'd ordered with us before, like she said, then she definitely has had to give this information. She starts to rant about it and claims, and I quote, "I may be on crazy pills, but I know I've never had to do this before." After letting her finish her rant, I explain, a bit short of patience this time, that this is just how the process works, and if she wants these shoes, she's gonna have to cooperate with me. Eventually, I get her information, order the shoes, and they leave. This entire exchange lasted a total of 45 minutes, which is 40 minutes longer than it needed to be. By the time they left, my manager saw how frustrated I was and told me I could go sit in the break room to calm down for a minute, which I gladly did. Customer service employees do not get paid enough to deal with the people like that day after day. We are human, not machines. You cannot talk to us like we're your computers. Half the time, we don't know what's going on either, and most of us don't even care. Which is why anyone who tells me that the customer is always right, I laugh in their face and tell them to go screw themselves. I'll tell you what, as CrystalWeb13 says here, the customer is always right in matters of taste. Neighbor won't stop banging on my walls every morning, posted by my Big Apple Pie. I've lived in my apartment complex for 4 years now and am no amateur when it comes to noisy neighbors. We've had several neighbors just come and go all around us, and they've all brought their own noises to contend with. My husband and I have no kids, just 2 cats, so we consider ourselves pretty quiet. Through all the noises made by the neighbors, including vacuuming every night at midnight, we have never complained. Not once. We just consider it to be par for the course when it comes to apartment living. However, about 3 months ago, one of my neighbors has taken to banging on the walls from the hours of 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. I can't pinpoint who it is because I'm surrounded on all sides, but I've deduced it's either my neighbor to the right, above me, or to the right and above. For a while, I genuinely thought I was being haunted because there was never any talking or movement, just insane banging. It's also sporadic, so when I try to pull an all-nighter to hear it while awake, it, of course, doesn't happen. This morning, though, whoever is banging finally shouted, "Wake the heck up!" to accompany their lovely symphony. So I now know for sure it's a human. I'm assuming someone is making noise that I can't hear, hence the banging and screaming, and I'm confident it's not us, especially since this all started. I make sure that every possible thing is unplugged before bed. But I feel like I'm losing my mind. It's difficult for me to fall asleep, so when I get woken up like that, I can't go back to sleep. The banging always makes me wake up in a panic, ready to fight. So calming down takes a while. And then by the time I'm calm again, I can't sleep. I just don't know what to do. I would tell the office, but I have no idea who it is. I'm tempted to leave notes for all the neighbors near me, but I'm very non-confrontational, so the thought of them catching me is nauseating. That is my rant. I'm just so over this particular noise. I'm losing so much sleep and my mental health is hanging by a thread. Maybe I'll just start banging back for once. Psycho Karen demands my house and sues me. Jail time for her with updates. Click the video on your screen. You don't want to miss this insane story, and I'll see you there.